Hello, and welcome to the Warrior Arts Renaissance Show, where you give us hard questions and we give you solid answers. Once again, I am Dr. Philip Payne, your host. Kind of segueing in from what we did earlier in the week in that bonus episode, makeup episode, whatever you want to call it, because I had missed the previous week. I want to talk a little bit more about the seminar that is coming up in a few days. It's coming up this weekend. I think it starts the day after tomorrow. It's in Washington, Indiana. And these guys, I promise you, they are the real deal. If you get in there with Jim Korn and Mark Klein, your practice, your experience of martial arts will never be the same again. I guarantee it. I said the other day, I'm going to say it again. If you go to this seminar, you take the seminar and you apply the things you learned there, and you can honestly tell me that it did not drastically improve your fighting skills, you contact me, you call me, you email me, you Facebook me, whatever you feel you need to do. You put something in the comments on this podcast if you want to. And you say to me, I did everything it told me to do, and it did not improve my system. I will personally give you 1 month of free training at my school, and I will throw in a free copy of a seminar of the whole Shishiro Ito Forgotten Way program that I was talking about in the last podcast. With that said, the first question we have from listeners today has to do with weapons. I'm a weapons guy myself. I know there are a lot of instructors who either don't do weapons, or they say the classical weapons don't apply anymore, or that's the other extreme where we only have to do modern weapons, or the real extreme, we can only do the weapons that are traditionally in our system. Okay, I don't buy any of that, and I love when people write in the questions, because I feel like what I'm giving is the answer that everybody's looking for. I'm not trying to be arrogant there, but I think it's almost the permission that everybody out there is looking for when they ask this question, but most instructors aren't giving it. Okay, and the question is, at what point is it practical to study weapons? My answer to that is that depends upon the student. Okay. Now, I do have a pretty hard, fast rule in my school that I learned from one of my teachers, Sergeant Major Borja, who taught me the core of the Borja family Kali. And he always said that until you have mastered your empty hands, you have no business picking up a weapon. And I firmly agree with that. Absolutely. But when that level of readiness is attained is different for everyone. Okay, I've had people who at like blue or green stripe, they're in the white belt and they're getting like the third stripe, and I'm like, you know what? Let's try a hand grappling weapon, and and add it in here and work. I'll work with you on it, and they've done well because they were ready. I've had people who were second and third degree black belts who didn't get it. I have a dear friend who actually has become a dear friend. He came to me from another school, already an instructor, but knew something was missing. I was talking about him in my last podcast. And he came to me and he wanted to learn about knives and about bladed weapons. And he's already pretty proficient when he got here. But I tried to teach him Kali, and it just didn't work. It didn't fit his mind. It didn't fit his body movement. But he wanted to learn everything he could about blade. And so we had to take a little different perspective. And what we ended up doing is we took movements that he already did, that he'd been doing for, I have no idea how many years he's been in the martial arts. I don't think it's as many as I have been, but it's been a bunch. I'm sure at least 2 decades, maybe more. I'd have to ask him. But took moves that he's been doing for 20 years that fit his body because he's done them thousands and thousands and thousands of times, and then translated that over into a bladed weapon format. Um, when you're going to be ready, it really is up to you. And you should have a qualified instructor teaching you how to use these things. And unfortunately, there are a lot of very qualified instructors who are so strict about tradition that they refuse to take those students who are ready sooner and give them that information. They hold it off till later levels, and that's their prerogative. But at the same time, that's, as much as I hate to see that, because there are some people ready sooner. Unfortunately, there are people who are just not ready, and I mean, may never be ready. And their teachers, because they reach a certain belt level, start giving them weapons. Okay, it's not a hard, fast yes or no at this time, at this age, at this, you've been in the martial arts this many years or what have you. That's not the answer. The answer is you're ready when you're ready. And like I said, get with your instructor. If you don't have an instructor who's qualified to teach weapons, get with me. I will help you find someone, probably in your area, who is very qualified. I just it may take me a bit, but I'll do the research. I want to be that kind of resource. The next question that I'm going to answer is actually one that was brought to me today, not by a listener. Well, he's listened to the podcast, but by a student. Okay, and he said, he wanted to know, because he likes knives, and he said, like many of us do, and he said, he wanted to know what was the right length of a knife for he should be carrying. He didn't know what he could carry legally. Doesn't want to get in trouble, but he really likes knives for self-defense. So we're in Indiana. So I showed him, we looked up the Indiana law, because I told him some things he didn't already know and I felt he should know. And so I looked up the law, and we read it to him, and we discussed it. And that was an eye opener for him, because he actually found out he had more options than what he really thought he did. We were very much a green state when it comes to, our green light state, I guess I should say, when it comes to bladed weapons. Not near the restrictions that a lot of states have. But as we got into the deeper into the question of what's the right length for him, um, I personally am comfortable with a longer blade than a lot of people are, but I'm also a longer person. I'm 6'3", and I have very long arms, very long legs. I've trained in Kali for years, so I'm actually trained for the machete. I've also trained in Bata Jutsu, so got a lot of sword practice in there. I'm okay with a longer blade. Um, but that's not always practical to carry. Okay, yes, Indiana is a very green light on bladed weapons, but I don't see myself ever carrying a katana down the street. Maybe a machete, if I'm like working in the local fields, for some extra money or something. But I don't see myself carrying those things. So I went back to something Sergeant Major Borja used to say when he was teaching us Kali. He said that there are so many places. He taught us 7. There's actually a few more than that I've learned since I studied anatomy for my degree in medicine. And he gave us 7 places on the body where a person, you can puncture the flesh a quarter of an inch, and if the person doesn't get medical help, they're going to die from bleeding out. And that's a pretty intense situation there, a pretty intense thing to think about. But if it's a quarter of an inch can be lethal, how long of a blade do you really need? Okay. The Borja family, Kali, and their machetes, as the design was drawn out and shown to me, I've not seen them, because I was an Army cadet and he was my cadre. I was not in the Philippines learning as he learned. I was learning here. But when he showed me the long knives, the quote unquote machetes, as we would call them, um, that his family trained to use. There's the long blade, but beneath the handle, there's a short blade. It's about 2 inches long. Um, my first thought was, what are you going to do with 2 inch blade? And then he explains to me, it only takes a quarter of an inch to make a person bleed out. So what can you do with 2 inches? You can do a lot more damage, make them bleed out faster. The length of the blade should fit your fighting style, your body movements. Okay, this student that asked me this today, um, he's not as tall as me, and he's got a broader frame. He's very, very solid guy, but he he carries himself differently than what I do. So I can't look at him and say, carry this length of blade because that's what's comfortable for me. He needs to carry the length of blade that's comfortable for him to use quickly and effectively, and to execute the techniques with precision. That's what he needs, and he needs to play with different lengths until he finds what works for him. And he needs to know those points, those seven places on the body that Sergeant Major taught, and a few more that I teach on top of that. And he needs to get to where he can hit them exactly and quickly. Also needs to learn muscle, uh, how to damage the right muscles, to very quickly make a person unable to attack. Knife fight can be very quickly very deadly, but it doesn't have to be. Okay, it can just impale, or not impale, and cause the person to be unable to get up off the ground and fight you. And with that knowledge, I think I could use any knife if it's sharp enough to exact that kind of damage. I've taken the same information about the weak points on the body for attacking arteries, and I actually developed a program that I share with police officers and prison guards and what have you, about the dangers of prison weapons. Okay, weapons that inmates make. Anyone who's worked in a prison very long has seen the bad end. Maybe not on themselves, hopefully, but they've seen inmate on inmate violence, or they've seen inmate on guard violence. But I teach this class, and I call it "How to Kill a Man with a Toothbrush." Okay, and it's based on that quarter inch to bleed a man out principle. And very quickly, in a matter of just a few seconds, I can make and then deploy a a lethal weapon from a toothbrush because I know where to hit and I know how deep I need to go. And any length of knife that you are going to acquire in a store, from a magazine, what have you, is going to work for that if you train it properly, if you practice the right cuts and the right puncturing moves and what have you. There's a lot more to this discussion. We spent most of a class today working on knife techniques based upon this question. And unfortunately, I'm almost out of time. So I am going to encourage listeners to send in for the next podcast, to send in questions specific about bladed weapons. And we're going to have a discussion and go deeper into this because it is something I love. It's something I'm passionate about, and it's something a lot of people have questions about. But for right now, I'm out of time. Tune in next week. Take care.